Over the years, the U.S. has accumulated more than $23 trillion in debt, though, spending money that we do not have, borrowing from our kids and our grandkids' future. The gargantuan federal bailout that just passed over $2 trillion brings us closer and closer to a point of no return, a point at which the world loses confidence in the dollar, a point at which our debt becomes an existential threat to our security. The United States was already having to borrow simply to pay our promises to senior citizens. The U.S. is borrowing about $1 trillion a year just to pay for everyday obligations. This is before the pandemic bailout. The U.S. was already borrowing nearly $2 million every minute. With the recent $2 trillion bailout, we are borrowing faster than we have ever borrowed before. Had we practiced sound budgeting in the past, we would have been better, significantly better positioned to weather this storm. Congress's failures of the past, coupled with the pandemic crisis of the present, could seriously jeopardize our economic future. In this moment, we need to think carefully about what we do next. To stop the spread of the virus, commerce has been disrupted, businesses have closed, and millions have lost their jobs. Right now, that number is over 20 million unemployed. The job losses will continue no matter how much money you throw at it until you reopen the economy. Our government has intervened with unprecedented scale to prop up our economy. We've injected $2 trillion. I don't believe it makes sense for the government to provide support to businesses and families. I do believe it makes sense for the government to provide support to businesses and families that can't make it through this. I've supported expanding unemployment benefits to workers displaced by government quarantine, including self-employed individuals that have lost their businesses. But make no mistake, the massive economic calamity we're experiencing right now was caused by government. Passing out $1,200 checks indiscriminately to people who haven't lost their jobs will do nothing to rescue the country. If we were going to make discrete payments, direct payments, the criteria should have been sending checks to people who needed it, people who lost their jobs, people furloughed, people who had wage cuts. Instead of directing help to the unemployed, though, some of these bailout checks will go to couples who earn nearly $200,000 a year. But you could give everybody in the country $12,000 and it wouldn't end this recession. Our recovery only comes when the quarantine is ended. Now, experts will disagree on the exact date that we should reopen the economy, but sane, rational counsel should continue to push for the quickest end possible. Opining about never shaking hands again is a recipe for keeping the economy closed until no one dies from infectious disease. While the infectious disease experts should be queried, so too should economists. We should seek counsel about balancing the harm to health caused by disease with the harm to health caused by enforcing dysfunction on the economy. Not easy decisions. Perhaps most importantly, leaders in each state must weigh in on the problem. New York City's open date will be different than Fargo, North Dakota. We need to get past a one-size-fits-all approach to infectious disease. Realize that most of this money that's being loaned to small business is not a loan. Most of this money will not be repaid. It will ultimately be considered grants and will be added to our national debt.